Hi, I have two name tags because although I am a suit, I like a lot of bling. So the first one says Patty Dudek, attorney and disability advocate. That's who I am. It's not my job, it's who I am, it's a part of me. The other one is Patricia E. Kefalas Dudek. This is what I have to say when I go to court, or what my mother used to yell at me when she was mad at me. Bonnell Foundation board member. They're equally important to me. I want to touch on just a few issues related to advocacy for people with disabilities. I do not have CF, nor do I have anybody in my family who has CF. However, I do have severe asthma, as do both of my children. My oldest daughter grew up with one of Laura's daughters, her oldest daughter, that's how we learned about CF, and I kept saying, boy, it sounds a lot like asthma, it sounds like a lot like asthma. However, I would say to you that there are many times when I've felt that asthma did define my life. I run into people I went to camp with years ago who would say, oh, I remember when you had that bad asthma attack, we had to have go to the emergency room, because back then you couldn't have a breathing treatment with you wherever you went. The medicine has come a long way, and it's made things much easier for the quality of life for my children. But we still have lots of things that we don't have a lot of control over. For example, when you go somewhere and there's something you're allergic to and you immediately start to have an asthma attack, and people don't really understand how quickly that can happen, and they think you're being melodramatic. So it's very frustrating. So I can commiserate or have a lot of empathy with what a lot of you have been speaking about today. I would like to say I'm also a graduate of Michigan State, have both undergrad and law school, and thank you. But when I went to Michigan State, the Disability Accommodation Center was not there. I had to live with a roommate who smoked, and that was not a great accommodation when you're allergic to smoke and you have asthma. So things have come such a long way, and a lot of reasons why things have come such a long way is because of advocates about people impacted by disabilities, their family members, and the people who love them. And so I just want to touch on a couple things that have happened also. Every school in the country should have a similar office that you could contact for accommodations. Your local school district, public school district, even if you attend a private school, they have to provide some accommodations to you. Most of them will do it willingly. However, they don't have to do it if they don't know. And so you have to tell them, and verbally is not good enough. You have to put it in writing, you have to explain it to them and why you need it. A lot of times people think, well, they should just know when I tell them I have CF or whatever, and it doesn't work that way. Another thing that's come a long way is in the old days, medical professionals like lawyers were perceived to be infallible or to be up on a pedestal in many respects. My mother never questioned her doctor ever, or her lawyer. They're the expert, they would know. Well, that's coming around. We're not the experts, we're people. And so I would say to you, the doctors are laughing back there, that you should be encouraged to ask questions. I get better by being challenged by my clients and my colleagues in the community, and I'm sure that other doctors or professionals feel the same way. And with that said, because there's more of that transparency and people are encouraged to advocate on behalf of themselves or their loved members, there's much more understanding that you can appeal decisions. The new laws out there related to health insurance and health care are very directly require person-centered care designed to meet the needs of the particular individual, and the particular individual can say, this treatment or this option doesn't work for me, or I don't trust this, I want to go this way. So don't be afraid to ask questions, don't be afraid to question why things are happening, and do your own independent research. My own doctor said to me, you're one of those clients I don't like because you do all your research on the internet before you come with questions. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I have engineers for clients too. I know what it's like, But that's okay, because then she and I feel like we're on the same wavelength. We feel confident about the decisions we're making. And as a result of that, there are huge progress or provisions in all health insurances now that allow you to appeal decisions. So don't just take the health insurance decision as what the right decision is for your family. So if they say, we won't pay for this treatment option, but we'll pay for this treatment option, and that's not the one you want, talk to your medical professional, talk to the social worker, their nurse, get your team together, nurse, and get your team together, get the evidence together, and appeal it. And if that doesn't work, you could appeal it over. And it's very interesting how in the 20 years that I've been in the practice of law, that the appeals process in my practice is more than 50% of what I do now. And that's because I do a lot of appeals in Medicaid, which they're very arbitrary. But, insurance companies are just as arbitrary sometimes. So I would like to say a shout out to my colleagues at Children's Special Healthcare. They have folks who can help you with insurance appeals, in particular because they don't want to use these tremendous, wonderful, limited resources for something where there's insurance coverage that should cover it now. They have great advocates who can help you with that. In fact, I often call them to help me because it's cheaper if they do it. So, try it. Another thing is that I don't know about folks with CF, but I would say many of my clients who are in chronic pain or have a significant disability also struggle with some mental health challenges, mostly because they're exhausted, because there's a lot more stuff to do, but sometimes just people don't understand. So I would just like to point out to you that although mental health parity has been the law in the nation since 2008, it has not been in practice ever. Okay, but now mental health treatment and services is required as an essential benefit covered under the new insurance policies under the Affordable Care Act. A lot of people are not happy about the premiums going up, but this is one reason why some premiums went up is because additional mandatory coverages were included. If you're struggling because you're frustrated or exhausted or your family member is, ask for help. It is covered under your insurance. There's no stigma in saying, I'm really tired, I'm sad, I need some help. Get it, do it. And if they say no, appeal it. Briefly want to just touch on a couple more things. One, there are some legal documents everyone in this room should have, and I'm not going to ask you to show your hands because I know I will guilt you because I've done this speech before. But the first is, and this includes kids who are turning 18 and getting ready to go to college, okay? And people always look at me when I say, what? I'm like, yeah, they're 18 now. And that is, you need a patient advocate designation. A patient advocate designation is where you put in writing who you want to make medical decisions for you when two doctors determine you are unable to engage in medical treatment decision. It's the most important legal document in the world. You can get them for free, a form from the State Bar of Michigan. You can also get them from most hospitals. I suggest you name more than one person just in case the person you've named is in the accident with you or whatever's happened, gets sick at the same time. And we have some strange law related to end-of-life decisions in Michigan, primarily because of Dr. Kevorkian. But you need to make sure there's clear and convincing evidence of what you wanted. You spoke to making sure people know what you want in terms of being an organ donor or whatever it is that your preference is in terms of making healthcare decisions. I have a document on my website. It's called a values history form. It talks about what your values are and what your medical history is so that you can give clear and convincing evidence to your advocate named in your patient advocate about what end-of-life medical decisions you want, because that will change as your medical treatment and your medical decisions in your life have changed. And then you don't have to change your legal documents. You don't have to come see a lawyer again. I would say to you, my dad had cancer 3 times. He was very aggressive of fighting it all 3 times, except the 3rd time he said, I will never do chemo again. Promise me I'll never do chemo again. I said, I promise. So his values had changed as his medical history changed. So it's important that you give whoever you've named as your advocate as much information as possible, because it's not easy to make these decisions. They would not be named in that document if they didn't love you. But let me tell you, as someone who's had to do it 3 times for loved ones, it's never, ever easy. So the more information you can give them, the more at peace they're going to be that they're doing what you wanted and it's the right thing. Second thing is, we have a patient advocate in Michigan. We're one of the few in the country that includes mental health treatment. A lot of times people may have an adverse reaction to medication. They could have early onset Alzheimer's or dementia, or something happening in terms of mental health, and the only legal entity in the state of Michigan who can admit you against your will in those circumstances is a judge. And they do it without a whole lot of due process, and they do it very quickly. This document trumps that and allows you to name who you want to make that decision. It also allows you to name what medical provider you want to make that decision, because you may have a medical provider who knows about some chronic medical condition that you're dealing with that may have an impact on your mental health, and you may want that person to be the person who makes the call. And so you can put those documents in writing as well, very easily. The mental health treatment in the patient advocate isn't as easy to find from health care providers, but it is, there are samples on the State Bar website. The next document, briefly, is the power of attorney. And this is the person who you can name to make medical, financial, and general medical decisions for you if you were not able to do so. There are two kinds. There's one that's springing, which springs into effect when two doctors say you can't make those decisions. And there's one that can be effective immediately. Most people have them effective immediately between their spouses, but I have a springing one for my 18-year-old who went away to college at American University in Washington, D.C. And so that if she had an asthma attack or got admitted to the hospital or for whatever reason, I can call the hospital and they must give me her legal records and her medical records. Where if I hadn't had this document in place, they don't have to talk to me. So I really encourage all of you to consider that. Organ donation is something you can name very specifically in your patient advocate. You can say you want organ donation to any needful donee. You can limit it to specific people. You can do whatever you want. I really encourage you to do that. I am the former chair of the Elder Law and Advocacy section for the State Bar of Michigan. We were strong proponents for the thing on the driver's license for the organ donation, but I also would suggest to you to look into gift of life and that kind of thing, because as she said, people can try to change your wishes, and it happens more frequently than you would think. And so the more documentation you have that you did all this ahead of time, and that you even chose which medical facility would come pick you up and take care of all this, and have it in a book for your loved ones, the better it is for them, and it's easier for them to be, again, at peace with a decision that could be really difficult. I just spoke about a lot of really technical stuff very quickly and in a very short time frame. So here's your chance to get free legal advice for as long as you want. So any questions?